I also welcome along to our build guide for the Okapi / Hoofstock double browser feeder. So the idea of this browser, if you haven't yet seen the other videos, is that it sits on a fence post in between two enclosures, so it allows the animals on both sides to browse, and as one animal pulls down, it's hinged right in the middle here, and it pulls the other side up, and it's auto leveled by the bungee, meaning that if they pull down here, this side goes up, but then it automatically settles back in this point again. So let's head straight to it. So just as a quick look at this without the fence line in it, you can obviously get a good idea of exactly how it looks. Now the feeders on the ends, completely up to you what you put on there, but obviously it helps if they're both roughly the same kind of size, so there's not too much balance issues there. Now with regards to the materials that we're using, all of our lengths of timber are 2.4 meters, so you can see we actually only use 3 lengths of 2.4 meters on this, and the type of timber that we use is 95 by 44 or 44 by 95, however you want to say it. But that type of timber, it's completely up to you, but this is definitely what we use, and it's nice and strong. And then with everything else, we've got a couple of lengths of rounds, obviously with the holes cut in them, and once again you can choose whatever you like for the feeders on the end. You can see we've got 8 staple plates, 2 snap hooks, a length of threaded rod with the nuts on either ends, and then some bungee, and what I've not shown here, we actually have some bungee clamps as well. So getting right into it, we start off with the 2 uprights. Now these are obviously the parts which are going to sit either side of the pole. So length that we went for is 1700, so this allows enough to sit down on the post, giving it a lot of strength, and also enough to sit above the post to obviously raise the device up above the animals' heads. So the next part here, this is going to be based on the diameter of the poles inside your enclosure. So the idea of this width here is it's just a little bit more than the post. So the posts which we were originally using at Yorkshire were 100mm posts, so we actually made this 110mm wide, just to allow for a little bit of wiggle room. So obviously if your posts are 150, I'd probably go 155 or even 160. So just bear that in mind, so that's what these lengths are for. Now we have 3 lengths down the front here and 2 at the bottom. So the 2 at the bottom, these are what are going to sit on top of the actual post itself. So you can imagine you've got these legs here which slide down either side of the post, and then these blocks just sit on top of the post, allowing it to stay in place while you're popping a couple of screws through the side of this into the post. So the height of these is obviously going to be determined by the height of the post and how high you want your actual feeder to sit. So make sure you're working all of that out. Now with regards to the part up the top here, these are actually what are going to attach the arms which have the hinge point on it. So from top to bottom, this is 407. So just to give you an idea of the gaps in between as well, it's 61mm in between each of these. Now once again, this is going to be determined on the size of the timber that you're using, but I'd say probably the most important measurement here is that one. So then we have your arms which are going to be holding the pivot point on. So the length of this timber is 590, and you can see we've actually got a 45-degree cut in this. Now I'm not going to lie, it's purely for aesthetics, so you don't have to put that in there if you don't want to, but it definitely does make it look a little bit nicer. And you'll notice that every one of our joints has 2 screws in it, and this is just to make sure it all stays nice and strong. If you are using coach screws like we have done here, I definitely would recommend putting pilot holes in beforehand, but see how it goes. If you end up splitting timber, then you definitely need those pilot holes. And then once you've got that arm attached on one side, then do it exactly the same on the other side here, completely opposite, and you'll notice that they both have a hole through them. Now it's completely up to you. Like I would actually normally wait until we've got the arm on it and use a very long drill bit and basically drill all the way through all 3 pieces at once. This means that the holes are most definitely going to line up, but it's up to you if you're feeling confident. If you want to drill them one at a time, then definitely go ahead and do that. So the arm itself we have used here is 2 meters in length, And the reason for this is obviously allows a meter overhanging on either side of the enclosure. So once again, you can go longer than this if you want to. And it's all held together with a piece of threaded rod and with a nut on either side of that threaded rod. So this just keeps it nice and strong. Now the nuts that we use actually have a nylon thread inside them, which means that once they're done up, they can't just come undone again. Okay, so it means it's going to be nice and safe for the animals. And then we're on to the bungee. So this is where we start using our staple plates. Now, before you go putting your staple plates in position, just a little tip for you. Put the ones in down the side here first of all, because that means then that the screws from these staple plates are going to go through into this block here as well. So it means that there's no ends of screws sticking out anywhere. So once you've got that first staple plate in, you then put the bungee around and attach the second staple plate. And the placement of this staple plate is going to be based on making sure you've got a good bit of tension on that bungee. So you don't want to pull it all the way so that it's at its full stretch, but you certainly want to have a little bit of stretch on it just to make sure it's nice and tight on there. And then we actually use something called a bungee clamp around the ends of these. So when we actually built this initially, the way that we did it is we had a loop of bungee which went out, around and back onto itself again, and then we used those bungee clamps to just sort of tie it together, so it made a loop around these two staple plates here. So once you've got those in place and you're happy with their placement and it feels nice and tight, you can then move on to put in the staple plates on the ends here. And what you put on these staple plates, the feeders, is completely up to you, but we just use a very simple log. So have the log, put some holes through it, which obviously allows browse to be put through it, or pellets and things, and then they're held together just with a nice simple snap hook, meaning that you can pull it off whenever you want to. And there you have it. It's really simple. So once you've got all of that built, take it down to the enclosure, slide it over the top of the pole and just put 3 or 4 screws through either side to make sure it's held in place. Now obviously if your poles are taller, you can take these 2 blocks out completely so that the pole sits up underneath there. Just sort of bear that in mind, what height you want this bungee to be at, but the main thing is obviously safety of your animals, so making sure they can't get access to the bungee. And there you have it, it's complete. So if you've got any questions at all about this, don't hesitate to get in touch with us, and we look forward to seeing your creation. So please make sure if you build this, you share it with us so we can feature it on our page. Thanks a lot and good luck with your build.